welcome to another Briefing Paints painting tutorial. This is the third part of the Fulgrim tutorial, so we're going to focus on the face and the hair. We're going to start off by base coating the hair, and I'm going to make a sort of 50-50 mix of AK Graphite and the Vallejo blue-pink colour. It's sort of a it's a Vallejo blue-violet. Make a 50-50 mix of that, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to base coat all of the hair in that colour. Nothing clever here. It gives a good, nice generic type purplish pink base coat that we can work off. We're going to be just dry brushing the hair once we've done this. After we'll put a little wash over it of Druchi Violet, and then we're just going to just dry brush it with lighter and lighter colours. We are going to be jumping around a little bit on this tutorial. Whilst we wait for some paint to dry, we'll move on to other areas to base coat them and shade them, and then move back to other areas. So yeah, the first step is to just base coat all of that hair in the graphite and blue violet mix. There are some GW colours you could get exact to that, but that mix will be okay. Now we're just going to move across using the Vamperic Flesh or any light base colour for flesh, and then just base coat the head in this. Be careful around the hair, but yeah, just thin it down a little bit of water and apply your AK Vamperic Flesh across your entire face of the model. Obviously, if you've done the helmeted version, you paint it in the way you've done your helmets for the other Marines. The other three faces are painted in exactly the same way, just different highlighting placements. Okay, with that base coat done, whilst we're waiting for a bit more paint to dry, we're just going to do the gold areas. There's only two really, which is the top of the horns. There's a sort of gold armour across the top of them. We're just going to do our normal gold recipe, but I've just started with the rusty gold, and then we'll highlight with old gold, and then a mix of old gold and Stormhold silver, just to give it a real shine. But yeah, this follows the same principles as the other gold that we were doing. Rusty gold, old gold, and then Stormhold silver to highlight. Right, now we're going to add some shade to the flesh, and like we did for the arms, we're going to use the contrast, the Magos Purple, as our shade to the flesh. So it's watered down for just a couple of drops of water, and just go in and apply this as you would any other contrast paint. So quite thick, but not too thick that it pulls too heavily, and just use your brush to manipulate the paint around the areas that you want to show as deeper. And really bring out those raised areas. Yeah, just move the paint around, make sure it's not pooling in certain areas. If you find it's pooling in certain areas, just clean your brush off and just absorb it, and then carry on. But a couple of brushfuls is really good, and a nice fine tip. Okay, whilst we were waiting for that to dry, we just made some watered down Druchi Violet, and we're just going to apply this as a shade across all of the hair. You'll notice that I'll apply a little bit more later on to the areas that are closest to the head, so of deeper shadow area. But at first, just apply this across the entire hair area. A little bit of water to this just to thin it down a little, and then you could apply a couple of coats if you wish for it to be darker. Yeah, I mentioned we were going to be jumping around. Now we're going to do some highlights to the horns and the sort of under armour that he's wearing. We're just going to use some AK Anthracite, which is a nice sort of mid-tone, darkish blue-black colour, and just going to be edge highlighting these areas, the little raised sort of ribbons that are there, just giving those a once-over highlight. And then across all of his other armour, not too much, a lot of this is hidden on the model. And then on the horns, we're going to pick out all the little lines that are on the horns, the striations that you see with this, and then we're going to make some mixes using some white and some sky blue a little bit later on, just to highlight the more raised areas where you want the highlights to be more pronounced. You see here we're doing our first sort of highlights with the lighter colour where we mixed it with a bit of white, and this would just be on the top edges, not too much. Okay, we're going to move back to the face now. We're going to use wine red, again as always heavily diluted, 1 drop of paint to 4 or 5 drops of water, so you make a nice glaze. With a small brush, what I'm going to do is now just paint this into the deepest recesses. It's a little bit blurry, even though it's a big head in the Warhammer size, it's still a small head for the camera to pick up. But I'm just going to be glazing this into the deepest recesses of the face, so around the mouth, around the eyes, in the deepest parts of the cheek, add some definition and some contrast into that model. And when everything's pretty much dry, it doesn't take long, we're just going to use that base coat of Vamperic Flesh to pick out the raised areas, highlight the horns, the nose, the tops of the cheeks, the eyebrows, and the lips of the mouth, as much finer detail as you can get. And then we're then going to move into the Ivory colour, aka Ivory, that I use, but you would use a sort of pallid witch flesh for that in the GW paints, to pick out the real raised edges, so the very tips of the nose, the very tips of the eyebrows, the very tips of the slash symbol that's on his head. Now we're going to move into some real fine detail, so I'm going to add, with the smallest brush, little dabs of white on the eyes. We're going to add some fluorescent paint to these. Don't worry if you go over a little bit too much. you can cover this up with a bit of wine red later. So to add little dabs of white to where the eyes are. Now I'm also going to pick out the teeth, the top teeth, the fangs, and the bottom teeth with this white as well. And with the fluorescent green from AK, just a little dab of this, and just use your brush and just go over the white that you've just done for the eyes, just to give a nice bright green eye. And then you'll notice where they're slightly too big, then I just go in and glaze around the eye with the wine red glaze that we created, just to add a bit more definition around the eye, and to just reduce it a little bit. You see here I'm just adding a few more highlights to those horns, just to push them towards the head. Your eyes are generally drawn to the brightest points of a model, so having your bright areas around the areas you want the person to look at. And here we're just going to use that glaze just to go back over the eyes, just to reduce the size of the eye and to add a bit more definition around it. Okay, now we're going to do some dry brushing with the Artify dry brush. What I've used here is some sky blue mixed in with the blue violet, a 50-50 mix, and then just dry brush against the sort of how the hair is, just up and down strokes, just applying more paint to the brush to get that colour variation. Nothing too clever here really with the dry brushing, just get brighter and brighter to where you want the brightest points to be. The hair is behind the model, so slightly in shadow, but yeah, just do the highlights as you wish here with the dry brush. I've applied more of the whitish colour where it's its most brightest to the very top as it sort of curves across. Okay, and the final step, I'm just going to use some Druchi Violet straight out the pot, and just where the hair meets the head, just apply some of this in the deepest shadows, just to apply a little bit of contrast. And then I'm going to apply this just where the hair meets the shadows, just glaze some of that in towards the head with a little bit of water, just so you get the darkest points towards where the hair joins the head, just to help blend it in and push that brightness. And then that's that for the head. At this stage I don't actually glue the head to the model. Instead it rests on there quite nicely for pictures. The backpack and wings are next, and just by looking at the model and how it fits together, if you were to fit the head now, you'll have real trouble fixing the back part of the backpack. So don't fix the head just yet. Of course, if you already have that, that's fine. Yeah, don't glue it in place just yet. Leave it off for now, and then put it all together once you finish painting the back of the backpack and the wings.